dirty, nasty, gross, disgusting. These are all words to describe this Hoosier cabinet I picked up at an auction. I didn't pay anything for it. It was free. It was an item that didn't sell. And I've always wanted one of these Hoosier cabinets, but they were always so expensive and I just couldn't afford one. So I was like, okay, it's free. I'll try it. This has got to be one of my biggest challenges to date. There was many layers of paint as well as I'm pretty sure mice were living in it and it was just dirty and gross. I literally had months of work ahead of myself when I started this piece. This video is part of a YouTube challenge and collaboration, the Unique Antique Challenge. This challenge is hosted by myself and co-hosted by DIYs by Dar. This challenge is all about trying new things. The first thing I knew I needed to do was remove all of the old paint. I did this in several different ways, but I found the best way was just using a product called Smart Strip, which is a biodegradable product. It's eco-friendly. I really liked the process of using it, and I hate stripping. This stuff made it a little bit more bearable. I always check my shoes for spiders before I put my feet inside them because I keep them outside and I don't wear them in the house. When using the Smart Strip, I added a pretty decently thick coat and then I covered it with plastic. I'm using just a plastic bag, and then later on I ran out of plastic bags, so I used my old gloves that yeah. So that's what you see here. After I pull off my gloves, I'm using my scraper and I'm scraping off this nastiness. As you can see, it comes off pretty good. It wasn't always this easy. There were some spots that were more difficult. I'll probably have nightmares watching this. It was really an awful process. I can't even tell you how many times in my head I said to myself, why? Why are you doing this? It was so bad. I almost gave up so many times, but after about my third tub of Smart Strip, I had already had a decent amount of money put into it, so I just kept going. This was the first time I've ever used this product, Smart Strip, and I highly recommend it. There's absolutely no smell to it, so I am really sensitive to smell, so that was a huge bonus for me when I had to work with this stuff a lot. It took me 3 or 4 coats. I'd put a coat on, I'd cover it up, I'd leave it on, go back the next day, and scrape it off. So the fact that it has no smell to it was huge to me. Off camera, I removed the back of the top hutch part as well as the rolly thing. And you can see how much dirt came off of this. I went through so much cleaning solution. After I got all of my paint removed, I sprayed it with a spray lacquer to seal in any tannins.
I've taken off the hinges and the door, which was surprisingly extremely easy. I thought I was going to have a heck of a time, being that the screws were so covered in paint. I've added the first coat of plastic wood to my missing veneer, and this is pretty awesome right here. I've done my Smart Strip onto the side of this flour sifter. Let me show you what it used to look like. It used to look like that. So just one coat completely got almost all of the paint off. I will do one more coat. There's still a little bit on that side. Working on this, getting this stripped. I need to cover it. Stuff is amazing. I've got that filled with my plastic wood and some other little random holes.
My plan is to do a layered finish on this. So I'm starting out with a Venetian yellow milk paint, and I'm painting the whole entire thing. Everything except for the slides for the drawers. I removed the little back pieces of wood. I'm not really sure what the purpose of those are for a Hoosier cabinet. So I didn't need them. I wanted everything to sit flush towards the back. So I took them off. I had two missing drawers on this Hoosier cabinet. So something I have never done before is make drawers. I picked up this shiplap board at Lowe's, and because it has like a little ridge cut out so that the shiplap can insert into each other, I thought this would be perfect for making drawers. I'm terrified of chopping my fingers off in the saw, so my husband always helps me when I need to cut any wood.
Don't get a sliver. Okay. Ready? Ready, set, and go! No, you gotta keep fighting. Like this.
Are you taping us?
Dad.
Is she taping us?
Mom!
No, I'm not. I'm taping this.
Dad, ready.
Not hard though. You're gonna
Wait,
have to
ready,
take my fingers.
ready. Ready, set, go.
I surrender.
And I've got a drawer. Look at this, you guys. This was so exciting for me. This was like the best thing ever. So I used the shiplap wood and it worked perfect. Then I stained everything in a Roanoke stain color so everything looked nice and pretty. After my stain was dry, I needed to add some pocket holes. I picked this up on Amazon and it's a really nifty little tool. It was inexpensive. I'm sure I will upgrade one day, but this works just fine for what I needed it for. I'm adding these holes so that way I can screw all my drawer sides together. For a little fun, something extra, I added some little fern stencils on the insides of the drawers and on the inside of the bottom part of the Hoosier cabinet. I'm just using a few different colors of green and yellow acrylic craft paint. And here's what my drawer looked like after I drilled all my pocket holes and screwed all of the sides together. And you can see where I am going to add my bottom. This is actually just some very thin plywood. I believe it's 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to add some glue to the area that I'm going to be putting the bottom of the drawer into. Off camera, we made the drawer fronts. I just used some salvage wood from the side of an old drawer and just measured the existing drawer and cut it to the specifications that I needed it. And then I took my sander and I kind of just beveled the edges, and then we tacked it in with a nail gun. I sanded down this wood board with a 120 grit sandpaper to smooth out any imperfections. And this is going to be the top of the bottom part of the Hoosier cabinet. I'm using the same colored stain, Roanoke, to stain it as I did the sides of the drawers. At this point, I finally feel like I'm in the home stretch. I'm using a few different paints and I'm going to mix them up so I can start working on my layered paint effect. Adding plaster of Paris to a latex paint gives it more of a chalk paint texture and feel. I want this black to be like my main color. I'm using a mister bottle to spread my paint out so I can work in thinner coats to pull through some of that yellow undercoat. I added a light brown latex paint with the black to blend it in and to kind of soften it up a bit. I'm using a paint palette knife and I'm adding some texture with it. To me, this sort of mimics like an old wall plaster effect or stucco, some sort of texture similar to that. After my palette paint application was dry, I added another thin layer of the black and some of the other colors and did the same thing, watered them down, sprayed it out, blended it all out. And then I repeated the whole entire process on the bottom half of the Hoosier cabinet. Off camera, I also cut a new piece for the back of the top of the hutch. I used a thin plywood, I believe it was 1/4 of an inch thick. I used the old backboard as a template. I traced it out and then we cut it out using a saw. I then stained it in the same color as the top of the bottom of the Hoosier cabinet and the drawer sides in the Roanoke stain. I added that to the top part of the hutch with some small finishing nails. For whatever reason, I seen this piece with lemons. When life gives you lemons, make lemonade. And that is like the perfect saying for this Hoosier cabinet. It was just literally left to die in a barn, and I feel like I really made the most of it with the whole entire condition that this was in. So I'm going to use these lemon transfers from IOD. I'm sealing the whole entire piece with a matte polyacrylic before I add my transfers. This is going to help my transfers stick. I'm drilling a small pilot hole for my new drawer pulls. This just makes it easier for you to screw in your screws. Once I figured out where I wanted my transfer, I used a burnishing stick and I rubbed the transfer paper until the transfer released onto my Hoosier cabinet. Once the transfers were released, I took my finger and I rubbed over top of the transfer to make sure it was adhered, and this also helps remove the halo areas around the transfer. Then off camera, I sealed my transfers on my whole entire piece again using the same polyacrylic, the clear matte polyacrylic that is. And that is pretty much it, you guys. I had a lot of new to me things that I did in this video working on this piece. This Hoosier cabinet is something I always wanted to do and I always wanted to try, and I finally was able to do it, as well as make a drawer. I've never done that before. I've never used the IOD transfers, and I've never tried the paint palette technique. I am really loving the way this turned out. I'm super happy with it. I'm going to use it to hold all of my paints. And I want to say thank you so much to all the participants that are joining this challenge. I will have the challenge playlist linked below as well as on the end screen. Make sure you check out all the amazing YouTube artists that will be joining, as well as my co-host DIY Spydar. You guys let me know what you think down in the comments on how I recreated this Hoosier cabinet. I hope you guys love it as much as I do. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have a great day. Thanks again. Bye.